My earliest memories go back to the early 80s. Watching my older half-brother wrench on what I believe was his first car, a 1970 Plymouth Fury with a 318 under the hood. Bell bottoms were flapping in the breeze, and wide rear tires stuck out past the fenders like they were trying to escape the car entirely. And if you didn't have an 8-track blaring something loud and funky, well, you were missing out. It was my brother who kept me close by, handing him tools and let me tinker while he worked. I didn't realize it then, but those moments stuck with me. That love for engines and grease became a part of me. Being poor meant you had to learn how to fix what you had, and fixing things with your own 2 hands was a point of pride. That's probably why my passion for working on cars never faded. It was built from necessity, love, and a whole lot of trial and error. After my parents' divorce, life shifted. A few years later, my grandparents bought me my first car, a tan 4-door 1970 Buick LeSabre with a 350 Olds rocket motor, best 200 car I've ever known. It ran as long as I could afford the gas, and back then gas was a luxury. Still, that car gave me freedom. It taught me how to fix things when I had no choice. And it took me on some of the best rides of my young life. I worked whatever jobs I could find. At 15, I was detasseling corn just to scrape together enough cash for fuel and a burger. Most of the time, I was riding around with my best friend. We were practically brothers. Our families lived just a few miles apart, and we were each other's shadows. From martial arts classes to Wednesday night Bible study, we did everything together, and to this day, he's still been one of the biggest sources of strength I've had through everything I've faced. But my hands didn't just stay busy with wrenches. When I was 11, it was just my dad and me for a while to keep me active and learning. He signed me up for a computer class. It was simple back then, but man, something about it just made sense. I was hooked. That spark turned into something more during high school, where I had the opportunity to work afternoons as a student programmer at a local factory. Right after graduation, I landed a job at a factory in Milford. I was just 17, still green and dating someone. We ended up moving in together and had 2 beautiful daughters from that relationships. Life was moving fast, but I embraced it. Later, I met my first wife, and we shared a good marriage for a time. Life doesn't always play out like you hope, and eventually we went our separate ways. But in the middle of all that change, something special happened. I moved into a house right behind my father. That turned out to be a gift. I got hired with the same company he worked for, and that time together meant the world to me. We'd share coffee breaks, work side by side, and build something even more valuable than a paycheck. We built a real relationship. We talked shop, swapped old stories, and made up for lost time. He wasn't just my dad. He became my friend. A few years later, during our town's annual Fun Days event held around Father's Day, I went on a blind date that would change my life. I wasn't expecting anything serious, but that night, I met the woman I'd end up marrying, the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. At the time, I was still living behind my dad's house. Funny how life lines up when you least expect it. Eventually, I took a job at a Chrysler dealership as a certified AC mechanic. Turning wrenches wasn't just a hobby anymore, it was a career. Life was good. I had a family, my work, and a sense of pride in what I did. Not long after that, a position opened up with the town of Milford, and I was hired on. We moved into a small 2-bedroom house in Milford, just enough space to start this new chapter. My daughters were older by then, and visits came and went as they started making their own decisions, but I was proud of the life we were building. Later, we make it official, and we're married and making a life. Then one day, My wife surprised me. Turns out she'd spoken with the Milford volunteer fire chief behind my back in the best way. Since I was already involved with the fire department, they thought it'd be a great idea for me to take classes and become a volunteer EMT for the town. I wasn't too sure at first. Truth be told, I didn't like blood or trauma, but I took the class anyway. And to my surprise, I found myself fascinated. I was learning how the human body worked and how to help when things went wrong. I passed my MTB certification and joined the team. One opportunity led to another. The staff at our local hospital in Hoopeston reached out and asked if I'd be interested in working some extra shifts on their ambulance service. Next thing I knew, I was finishing my shift at the town, jumping into my truck and heading to Hoopeston Hospital to work. I'd finish up around midnight, crawl into bed, and do it all again when my alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. It was a grind, but it was a purpose, and at the time I felt unstoppable. It was just about a year later when I joined the auxiliary police department. Between that, my shifts as an EMT working for the town and helping at the fire department, I honestly didn't know whether I was coming or going most days. But I just kept going. Then, as if life wasn't busy enough, I joined the security team at our local music theater, a place where big-name artists would roll through town to perform. It was our job to make sure they were protected and taken care of. And somehow, in the middle of everything else, I found myself standing backstage next to some of the best in the business. I had the privilege of working shows for Ralphie May, Buckcherry, Crystal Bowersox, Billy Bob Thornton, and plenty of other top-billed acts. It was surreal for a small-town guy. Those were unforgettable nights. I learned a lot about respect, humility, and the fact that no matter how famous someone gets, everyone wants to feel safe and supported. I look back now and see how full my life was. I was working for the town I loved, saving lives, making new friends, learning new skills, and even going back to school to become an EMTI, just a step below a paramedic. I was proud of what I was doing. I had built a life with meaning. At that point, everything felt steady, life was good. I had no reason to think a storm was coming. You never really know who's in your corner until life throws a punch that lands. Not the kind that bruises skin, but the kind that caves in your soul. And when that day came for me, I found out I had more family than blood could ever claim. It started with the rumble of an engine and the sound of gravel under tires. No scripts, no actors, just folks who cared enough to be real when everything in me was breaking. I don't remember what I said that morning, probably something smart-ass to hide how scared I was, but I remember what they said. Austin, hey, keep it up, buddy, keep wheeling, we love it. Simple words, nothing fancy. But when you're losing pieces of yourself every day to something like MSA, that kind of love feels like a life raft in a sea you didn't choose to swim in. One by one they came, not out of obligation, but out of heart. Some were old friends, some were new faces, some were just strangers who saw me fighting and said, "You ain't alone." A big guy with a soft voice pulled me in close and said, "I respect you for what you're going through and how you're dealing with it." And he choked up like he could feel it too.
Another man I barely knew whispered, "I love you, brother. God bless you. Anything you need, I'm right around the corner. We're in your corner. We're fighting for you, buddy." And just like that, I wasn't fighting alone anymore. MSA is an invisible beast. It doesn't wear a name tag or walk in with a warning. It sneaks in through the nerves, hides behind smiles, and strips you of movement, dignity, and eventually your voice. But that day, my voice still worked, and I used it. Not to ask for pity, but to share something real. Because I didn't want people to see me as a disease. I wanted them to see the man inside it. I talked about what it's like to lose pieces of yourself while still holding on to love. I talked about pain, but I also talked about purpose, how every moment can still matter, even when your body says otherwise. And they listened, not out of sympathy, but because something in my story made them look inward. Maybe they saw their own struggle. Maybe they saw someone they lost. Maybe they just saw a man still standing when the odds said he shouldn't. There's a power in people just showing up. No fancy speeches, no cure, no magic. Just being there. And that's what those first few minutes were, a quiet army of love and respect gathering around me with nothing to gain except the truth that we're all in this together, even if we suffer alone. Somewhere between the tears and the thank yous, I realized something I'll never forget. You don't need to be whole to be seen. You just need to be honest. And in that moment, I was.
My first sign that something was wrong didn't come with flashing lights or a dramatic collapse. It came in the back of an ambulance while I was doing something I'd done hundreds of times. Preparing to start an IV on a patient, my hands, normally steady with surgical precision, had a tiny shake unnoticeable to anyone else. Except me, I brushed it off as nerves. Then I had the incident where I collapsed on the bathroom floor after coming home from work in the auxiliary police department. There's something realistic about laying face down on a cold tiled floor. I knew it was time to see a doctor. Before we ever heard the words multiple system atrophy, we heard Parkinson's over and over again. One neurologist after another nodded thoughtfully, ran a few tests, maybe poked my knee with a reflex hammer and said, "Yep, Parkinson's disease." But deep down we knew that wasn't it. My body wasn't reading the manual, it wasn't playing by the rules. Something was off, and it was getting worse. We went from hospital to hospital like we were on some twisted medical tour. I went through every test short of alien probe, and one of the more exotic highlights, they put me in a glass chamber, cranked the heat up to 118 degrees, and told me to relax for an hour while Hawaiian music played softly in the background, while they said don't move, like I was able to go anywhere. I don't know what kind of vacation they thought this was, but I remember thinking, am I being served as dinner? If a luau pig could sweat, this was it. Then came the tilt table test, oh that beauty. Picture a carnival ride designed by a mad scientist. They strap you down vertically, start tilting you back like you're being crucified by science, and wait for your body to cry. Uncle. I lasted a couple of minutes before I blacked out and woke up back in my room. My wife hadn't even gotten her coffee before I'd taken a trip to the edge of consciousness and back. It wasn't just physically exhausting. It was mentally brutal. Every test that didn't give an answer just added more fog to the mystery. But I kept showing up, kept going back because I needed to know what I was fighting. Then life threw another curveball. My mother-in-law got sick and ended up seeing a neurologist over at Carlisle Hospital. Not just any neurologist. This one actually listened. He treated her like a person, not a clipboard, and wouldn't you know it, she made a full recovery. My wife, being the fierce, protective soul she is, took a chance. She told this doctor about me, about the years of bouncing from one white coat to another, the stacks of medical files wet gathered like some tragic scrapbook, and the endless parade of blood work that could probably start a small blood bank. He didn't roll his eyes. He didn't dismiss her. He said, "Let me take a look." It was just short of a week later when we got the call to come in. I remember sitting in his office, heart pounding, trying to act like it was just another routine visit. He had me do the usual tests, finger taps, walk in a straight line, checking reflexes. But this time it felt different. He already knew something before I even moved. He set the file down gently, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I read everything they were close with Parkinson's, but that's not what's happening here." Then he said it. Those 3 little letters that would change everything. MSA. There's a moment when the doctor says something that doesn't sound like English, but you know deep down it just changed your life. For me, that word was multiple system atrophy. 3 words, not it's cancer, not it's a stroke, just something rare enough to make the room go quiet. Even the doctor stumbled a bit like he hated to say it out loud. It's progressive, it's degenerative, it affects your nervous system and there's no cure. And just like that, everything I thought I knew about my body, about my future, about my place in this world, my careers, I didn't cry. Not then. Because it didn't feel real yet. It was like hearing someone else's fate, like reading a tragedy and not realizing your name was on the cover. The symptoms had already been there. Tremors, balance slipping, muscle tone fading like a carnival balloon. From the circus, I kept telling myself it was stress. Or maybe I was just getting older. But deep down, I knew something was taking hold. When they gave it a name, I finally had something to call it. But that didn't make it any easier. What they don't tell you is that MSA doesn't arrive all at once. It's not a car crash. It's a slow motion unraveling train wreck, a zipper being pulled on your life, one tooth at a time. First it's a shake in your hand that makes eating hard, then it's your voice getting quieter, then it's standing up and feeling the world tilt. People start to notice, but they don't see the fight that goes into hiding it. They don't see the hours it takes to prepare for 5 minutes of normal. They don't see you fall in the shower because you couldn't reach the towel. MSA is a thief in slow motion. And just like that, I went from being the guy who would try anything to the one people looked at with sympathy. You lose things fast, not just muscle or energy, but dignity. That's the worst part. You start measuring your worth by what you can still do, by how long you can hide the weakness, by whether or not people still treat you like a man. And when you feel it slipping, you fight like hell to hold on. But even then I didn't give up, not because I'm brave, not because I'm strong, but because I hadn't found my purpose yet. I wasn't done being here for my daughters, for my friends, for the strangers who might hear my story and say, say, yeah, me too. So yeah, the diagnosis changed everything, but it also clarified everything. I had a name, I had a war, and I had a reason to fight. When you live with a terminal illness, time becomes currency. And some days you're broke. But even on the days when my body said no, my heart kept whispering, not yet. The Trike was more than metal. It was freedom built by the hands of friends who refused to watch me fade. Cass County Choppers, a shop with big heart and serious skill, took on the challenge. Our friends raised the funds during a car and bike show. Cass County cut the frame, added custom rear axles with wide car tires. They gave me balance where mine was slipping and built a custom Yamaha Warrior Trike just for me. They didn't just modify a bike, they built me a second chance. My old motorcycle, my last ride, wasn't safe anymore. But thanks to them, I could keep rolling. They gave me something rare. Movement. For a while, that Trike was everything: wind on my face, control under my hands. It felt like I'd won something back from MSA. But time moved on, and so did the mission. One day, a local veteran crossed my path, down on his luck but proud. He looked at that Trike like it was made of gold, and in that moment, I knew it had served its purpose for me. So I gave it to him. He cried, I smiled. And without hesitation, he offered me something in return. A 19th Dodge Dart locked in an old semi-trailer, running barely but still breathing like me. That car didn't look like much, but under the dust was hope, a new project, a reason to get up. And maybe even a way to tell my story louder than before. That Dart was my new therapy, my new rebellion. My fingers were weak, my legs barely worked. But every bolt I touched, every wire I chased reminded me I wasn't done yet. And then something incredible happened. Johnny from Blueprint Engine saw the story, saw what this Dodge Dart meant, not just to me, but to the people following the journey. He didn't just see a car. He saw hope on wheels. As he said in an interview, they wanted to help sponsor the project because it stood for something deeper than horsepower. It was about drive, resilience, and purpose. They believed in the mission, and they believed in me. That support lit a new fire in me. I wasn't just rebuilding a car, I was rebuilding my fight. Backed by people who truly understood the power of showing up.
You learn a lot when people don't know what you're carrying. MSA doesn't show up in bandages or casts. It shows up in hesitation and shaking hands, in the long pause before you answer a simple question. And people judge what they see. They think you're drunk or slow or rude. They don't see the hours it took just to get dressed. They don't know how loud your pain screams behind a polite nod. But there's strength in silence, there's courage in every breath that hurts. And even when they can't see the fight, you keep swinging anyway. Because you're not fighting for recognition. You're fighting to stay you. There were days I'd stare in the mirror, steady in my hands like a soldier before battle, knowing that one wrong twitch would mean spilling coffee, or worse, someone else assuming I was weak. There were nights I choked on my own saliva because my throat forgot how to swallow. And I'd sit up right in the dark, praying it would pass. I've walked through stars and heard whispers, watched people glance away like illness is contagious. But the truth is, I'm not ashamed of what they see. I'm frustrated by what they don't. They don't see the hours it took to prepare for that outing. The way I map out every entrance and exit. The way I wonder if the bathroom is accessible, or if my pride will take another hit today. Invisible illness isn't just physical. It's emotional, it's spiritual, and sometimes it's lonely. But it also reveals your tribe, the ones who look past the tremors and delays and see you still standing, still pushing. The strongest people I know don't wear capes. They wear compression socks and braces. They carry pill organizers like battle gear. They've mastered the art of masking pain with a smile. So the next time you see someone struggling to walk, or taking too long to respond, don't judge, don't assume, just see them. Because we're still here, still fighting. And that in itself is strength.
They say the hardest part isn't the disease, it's what it steals. The late nights when you're alone with your thoughts. The mornings when your body won't do what it did yesterday. The look in the mirror when you no longer recognize the man staring back. But you learn to grieve the living. You bury the version of yourself you used to be. And then, if you're lucky, you build something new out of the ashes. That's what this journey became, not a slow death, but a louder life. I traded sprinting for storytelling, speed for stillness, muscle for meaning, and somewhere in that surrender I found peace. Let's not sugarcoat it. There are nights when peace is hard to find. Nights when the world is quiet and all you can hear is the hum of machines keeping you alive. Nights when you wonder if anyone still sees you, not the sick version, but the man who once carried others. Nights when grief creeps in, not just for what you've lost, but for what you know you're still going to lose. You start talking to God a little differently, not always with praise, sometimes with silence, sometimes with anger, but always with honesty. You ask questions you don't expect answers till you stare at the ceiling long enough to memorize its cracks. And even when the house is still, your mind is loud. You remember every part of yourself you had to let go of, your strength, your swagger, your independence. You miss the man who didn't need help to shave or shower or simply stand. But here's the truth no one says out loud. Loneliness isn't always about being alone. Sometimes it's being surrounded by people who mean well, but will never understand what it's like to be you. So you learn to live between the lines. You learn to take comfort in small things. A dog curled at your feet. A message from someone who says your story helped them. A moment when your hands don't shake. You learn to light your own candle when the world goes dark. Because after the light fades, after the cheers, the cameras, the visitors, there's just you. And that has to be enough. And slowly, somehow, it becomes enough.
My dad got to see the man I became, but he always knew who I was, even before I did. When my parents divorced, I was still young. Back then, nearly 40 years ago, it wasn't common for a father to get full custody, but he did, and it made all the difference. He raised me with strength, with structure, with love. Not through long speeches, but by showing up every single day. Some of my earliest memories are riding along with him to what he called meetings. I didn't understand them at the time. The suits, the symbols, the quiet rooms filled with firm handshakes and respectful nods. Later, I found out they were Masonic meetings. My father was a master Mason. He'd also take me along when he worked as an auxiliary police officer for the city of Watseka, Illinois. I remember the way he wore his badge, not as a symbol of power, but of service. He taught me that being a man wasn't about being tough. It was about being dependable. What I didn't realize then was that he wasn't just taking me with him because he needed a babysitter. He was planting seeds. He was showing me what it meant to be part of something bigger than yourself. Years later, I stood beside him again, not as a boy, but as a man. I became a master Mason, with my father right there beside me. I even joined the same auxiliary police department, walking the same path he once had. I wasn't just following in his footsteps. I was honoring them. And that's why the Hawk mattered. A 1964 Studebaker GT Hawk had sat in the garage like a sleeping giant covered in dust, waiting for the right time, waiting for me to keep my promise. Before my dad passed, he looked at me and said, "Son, don't let that Studebaker rot." So I didn't. Piece by piece, inch by inch, even as my body failed, my will didn't. That car became my therapy, my heartbeat, my way of keeping him close. Long after he was gone, every bolt I turned was an act of love. Every wire I chased was a memory rebuilt. The day I turned the key and heard it roar back to life, it wasn't just an engine starting. It was legacy. It was the sound of a promise kept,
We even filmed it, the very first video of me driving the hog while the song I wrote for my dad played in the background. The video opens with a real moment between us, a conversation we had years ago about fixing that car. Nothing scripted, just a father and son talking dreams into motion. That moment, it lives forever now. Not just in memory, but in motion. You can watch the video, you can hear the car, but what you can't see is the pride I felt not in the car, but in the fact that I got to carry my dad's story a little further down the road. Because in the end, that's what this has always been about. Legacy, love, and keeping the promises. That matter.
That answer ain't for them. It's for you. A reminder that breath in your lungs still means something. Purpose don't always come dressed up in a trophy or a title. Sometimes it's just making it to tomorrow with your soul still intact. People think strength is lifting heavy things. Nah. Real strength, it's waking up in a body that betrays you and still choosing to get out of bed. It's knowing the odds are stacked against you and standing up anyway. It's laughing through pain, loving through fear, and finding meaning in a world that don't always slow down just 'cause you had to. Living for the moments left means saying yes when you could have said, why bother? It means putting on your boots, even if you ain't got nowhere to go, just because you still can. Some days, I watch the world pass by from my window, but I don't feel left behind. I feel present. Every second matters more when you know they're numbered. There's a kind of wisdom in that, a sacred quiet most folks never hear it. Too busy running, too busy chasing, but when you're forced to slow down, you start to notice the music in the silence. The way your heart still beats, the way your story still matters. MSA might take a lot from me, but it will never take my presence. It will never steal the fire in my chest that says today I lived. So I collect these moments, one by one, like photographs burned into memory. Not because I'm dying, but because I'm still here. And as long as I'm still here, I'll keep living for the moments left. You stop counting years. You start counting good days. The laugh of a friend, the smell of old motor oil, the sting of a cold soda on a hot day. They become holy. MSA takes the big things so you learn to cherish the small ones. A sunrise, a handshake, a tear you didn't hide, a dog leaning on your leg like you're still the strongest man in the world, a breeze through an open window when you're too tired to walk outside. These are the things that matter now. And when people ask, how do you keep going? You look them in the eye and you say, because I still can.
People think it's all in the chair, but the real battle, it starts long before the wheels ever hit the floor. They don't see the swallowing exercises just to eat a small meal. They don't see the way dizziness greets you before your feet even touch the ground. They don't hear the gurgle in your throat at 3 a.m. when you're sleeping upright, so your lungs don't drown you. They don't feel the panic of not knowing if today your voice will work or if you'll be just a silent observer in your own life. But you keep smiling. Not because it's easy, but because it's defiant. Because hope, when spoken aloud, can echo louder than fear. MSA doesn't just affect movement, it hijacks your entire operating system. It's not one thing going wrong, it's everything slowly forgetting how to work. Your autonomic nervous system, the part that's supposed to run in the background like a well-oiled machine, heart rate, digestion, blood pressure, breathing, starts short-circuiting. Systems you never had to think about become life and death challenges. You stand up and black out because your blood pressure can't stabilize. You eat a small meal and it feels stuck for hours. Sometimes your bladder empties without warning. Other times, it holds on until the pain is unbearable. And your voice, that is one of the cruelest losses. It doesn't disappear all at once. It fades slowly until the words in your head are louder than the ones the world will ever hear. Even breathing becomes a negotiation. Your brain forgets to tell your lungs what to do, so you wake up grateful not because you feel rested, but because you woke up at all. These are the things people don't see. They don't see the feeding tubes, the catheters, the oxygen machines, the medications timed like a military operation, the hours spent recovering from a 5-minute outing, the caregivers quietly managing it all behind the scenes. And yet, when you smile, when you crack a joke, when you share a story, they think he looks fine. But fine is a mask. Fine is a battle cry from someone fighting an invisible war. Fine is the lie we tell the world so we don't have to explain what it feels like to grieve your body in real time. So if you're hearing this, whether you're a friend, a nurse, a family member, or just someone trying to understand, know this: that person in the wheelchair is fighting harder than you could ever imagine. They're not lazy. They're not weak. They are warriors, warriors of a war you can't see. And if you see them still showing up, that's not weakness. That is power. Music saved me. Not in some Hollywood slow motion dramatic way. No, this was real. Gut-wrenching. The kind of save where you put on your headphones and escape. Writing songs became my voice when mine got weak. Telling stories through verses gave me a power I thought was gone. But there's more to it than just emotion. Music is medicine. Research published in Nature Neuroscience shows listening to music you love releases dopamine. That's the same brain chemical behind pleasure, motivation, and the will to keep going. It's not just emotional relief, it's neurological. That dopamine boost can lift your mood, calm your anxiety, and even sharpen your focus. My songs are more than melodies. They're lifelines for me and for anyone listening to the fight behind my voice. When people hear your story set to music, they connect. not just to your lyrics, but to your survival. He asked me, "How did you even get into music? Was it just natural?" I told him, "Music promotes dopamine. Dopamine lights up the brain's pleasure and rewards centers. It's why a single note can feel like sunlight breaking through clouds. That's how music's helped me. It's why you almost never see me without earbuds. And every note reminds me, I may not be able to run, but I can still reach people, one chord at a time. Because my songs aren't just music. They're survival."
My favorite mornings. They start long before most people open their eyes. I'm up at least half an hour before the sun even thinks about cresting the horizon, and the colors in those moments, they're beyond description. A slow, gentle bloom of gold, pink, and purple. On foggy mornings, the light slips through the tree branches just right, sending soft beams down like nature's own stained glass. In one hand, a warm cup of coffee. In the other, a camera. I snap pictures of the hummingbirds as they sip from the feeder. And sometimes, I swear they're drinking right along with me, nodding as if to say, "Good morning, buddy." Those moments, those quiet, sacred minutes before the world wakes, are what make this season of life feel full, even as the road ahead grows shorter. It's easy to think hospice is a one-person journey, but the truth is, I'm not walking this road alone, and I couldn't, even if I tried. Every single day there are people holding me up in ways both big and small. There are the hospice nurses who step quietly into my home, their hands steady, their voices gentle. They don't just check my vitals, they check on me. They know when to share a laugh. They know when silence says more than words, and they know exactly when to place a hand on my shoulder so I remember I'm not invisible. Then there's my wife, my constant. She's been beside me through every appointment, every mile traveled, every hot rod show, and every sunrise. She's my caretaker, my anchor, and my daily reminder that love isn't just spoken. It's lived out in 1,000 small acts. Friends stop by with stories. Neighbors wave from the fence. And sometimes the dogs climb right up next to me, convinced they're my personal security detail. Even the people I don't see, the ones who send messages, prayers, or cards, they're part of this circle. They remind me that compassion doesn't have to be complicated to matter. In the quiet moments, I realize something. Hospice care isn't just about medical help, it's about human connection, and without that, this journey would be a lonelier, colder road. If you've never been close to someone on hospice, it's easy to think your role as a visitor, friend, or family member is small, but it's not. Sometimes the smallest gestures carry the heaviest weight. If someone you know is on hospice, don't wait for the right time to reach out. The right time is now. Sit with them, even if you have nothing to say. Listen to their stories, even the ones you've heard a dozen times. Bring them their favorite snack. Send a handwritten note. Share a memory that makes you both laugh. You don't have to fix anything. Truth is, you can't. But you can be there. You can make sure they know they're still part of the world, still seen, still valued. Because one of the quiet fears of hospice isn't dying, it's being forgotten while you're still here. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask. Most of the time, the answer will be simple. Sit with me for a while. Hospice isn't about counting down the days. It's about making the days we have left count. When my chair is empty one day, the hot rods will be parked without me leaning over the hoods. My bed by the window will be neatly made. The hum of the medical machine silence. The coffee cup will sit clean in the cupboard instead of warm in my hand, and the hummingbirds will drink alone. When that day comes, I hope you'll remember more than the fact that I had an illness. I hope you'll remember that I lived, that even in the middle of a body that was shutting down, my heart kept finding reasons to start the day. Reasons as small as a bird's wing beat or as big as a roaring engine. I hope my story reminds you that hospice isn't the end of life. It's still life, and for those of us living it, the greatest gift you can give is your presence. So when my chair is empty, find someone else's to sit beside. Hold their hand, listen, laugh with them if you can, cry with them if you need to. Because one day, someone you love will need that from you.
If you're reading this, then I made it. Not to the cure, not to the finish line, but to you, to your eyes, to your heart, to your understanding. The story wasn't easy to write, but it was necessary. Because there's a life behind every diagnosis, and a warrior behind every person. If you're fighting something, I see you. If you've lost someone, I honor you. If you've doubted your worth, remember, you matter. I was here. So were you. And that is enough.